There's only one bed. Mason's voice went quiet before I even turned around. That was how I knew he remembered too. I stood in the middle of the hotel room with my overnight bag still hanging from my shoulder, staring at the queen mattress like it had personally reached into my chest and pulled out something I thought I'd buried years ago. The clerk downstairs had been apologetic in that fake, cheerful way hotel people get when they know they can't fix anything. Wedding weekend. Fully booked. System error. One room. One bed. Mason offered to argue with them. Of course. He had already leaned over the counter, jaw tight, one hand resting near mine, but not touching it. We booked 2 beds, he'd said, calm but firm. The clerk just gave us another helpless smile and slid the keycards across the counter. I'm really sorry. And now we were here. Oregon coast outside the window. My friend's wedding tomorrow. My former bully standing beside me is my boyfriend. That sentence still sounded fake sometimes, even in my own head. Mason Reed used to be the guy I avoided in hallways. The guy whose laugh could make my stomach twist before I even knew why. The guy who never had to be the cruelest person in the room because he had friends who would do it for him, and back then, he let them. Now he was the guy who knew how I took my coffee. The guy who carried extra hoodies in his truck because I always forgot one. The guy who looked at me like I was something he was terrified of breaking. Elliot. My name came soft. Careful. I hated how much that helped. I hated that my body still trusted his voice before my brain caught up. I looked over. Mason hadn't moved past the doorway. His duffel was still by his shoes. Dark dress shirt half untucked from the drive, sleeves pushed up, hair messy from the wind. He looked older than the boy in my memory. Broader. Quieter, less sharp around the edges. But for one stupid second, the room changed anyway. It wasn't this hotel anymore. It was senior year. Debate trip. Cheap motel carpet. For guys laughing too loud. Mason leaning against the wall while someone called me princess because I wouldn't change shirts in front of them. He didn't say it first. That was what I used to tell myself. Like that made it better. But he laughed. And somehow that was the part that stuck. I can sleep on the floor. Mason's words pulled me back so fast my chest tightened. I blinked at him. What? He nodded toward the carpet like it was already decided. Seriously, I'll grab extra blankets. Or I can call around. Maybe there's another hotel 20 minutes out. It's fine. The answer came too quick. Too automatic. His eyes searched my face. That was the problem with dating someone who had spent the last year learning all your exits. He knew when I was lying. Don't do that. I tried to laugh. It sounded thin. Do what? Say it's fine when your hand is shaking. I looked down. My fingers were curled tight around the strap of my bag. White-knuckled. Embarrassing. I loosened them and forced my shoulders down. It's just a bed, Mason. The room went quiet after that. Not dramatic. Not movie quiet. Worse. Real quiet. The kind where you can hear the air conditioner clicking and somebody's suitcase rolling down the hallway outside. Mason swallowed, eyes dropping for half a second before coming back to mine. The last time we shared a room, I wasn't safe for you. My throat closed. I wanted to tell him not to say it like that. I wanted to protect him from his own guilt, which was ridiculous because I was the one standing there with an old bruise waking up under my skin. You're not that person anymore. He didn't look relieved. I know. A pause. But you were still there. That hit harder than it should have. Because yeah, I was. I was there for the jokes, the laughter, the way my face burned while I pretended not to care. And now I was here too, 25 years old, in a coastal hotel room with the same man looking like he would rather sleep in the parking lot than make me uncomfortable. I set my bag on the chair slowly. We'll figure it out. Mason nodded once, but he still didn't step closer. And that was when I realized the bed wasn't the dangerous part. The dangerous part was that this time, he was giving me a choice. I did not unpack right away. That probably sounds stupid, but putting clothes in drawers felt too normal for a room that had just turned my stomach inside out. Mason noticed, of course. He noticed everything now. Not in the loud way he used to notice things back then, when attention from him felt like a spotlight you could not step out of. This was different. Quieter. He took off his jacket, folded it over the back of the chair, then stopped before sitting on the bed. Chair is yours, he murmured. I glanced at him. You do not have to treat the furniture like a crime scene. His mouth twitched, almost a smile, but it did not reach his eyes. I am trying not to make assumptions. About a chair? About space. That shut me up. I hated how good he had gotten at saying things that landed exactly where I did not want them to. I looked away first, because holding his gaze too long made the air feel warmer than it should have. Outside the window, the parking lot lights flickered against the glass. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed, probably another wedding guest already half drunk and excited about tomorrow. Normal people, normal weekend, normal room. I kept telling myself that. Mason crouched by his duffel and pulled out a navy hoodie. He held it toward me without making a big deal out of it. You were cold in the lobby. I stared at the hoodie. I am fine. His eyebrow lifted slightly. Not judgmental. Just Mason knowing I was lying again. Elliot. One word. Soft. Annoyingly effective. I took it before I could argue more. The cotton was warm from being packed against his clothes, and it smelled like his truck, clean laundry, and that cedar cologne he always wore too lightly. My chest did something embarrassing. I put it on too fast, like speed could make it less intimate. Mason looked at me for half a second too long, then glanced down at the carpet. What? I pulled the sleeves over my hands. Nothing. That was not nothing. It fits you better than it fits me. The words were quiet. Too quiet for a joke. My face went hot. That is a terrible line. This time he actually smiled. Small, tired, careful. Yeah, I know. For a second, it was almost easy. But my whole body reacted like it had been waiting for permission to panic. Mason froze immediately. His hand stayed there, not pulling away, not pressing closer. His eyes lifted to mine. Okay. The question was so simple, so gentle. And that was the problem. Because once, years ago, his hand around my wrist had meant stop being dramatic, take the joke, do not make it weird. Now it meant tell me what you want, and I will listen. I swallowed, pulse jumping under my skin. Yeah. My voice came out rough. His thumb shifted, accidentally or not, brushing the side of my finger before he let go. The contact lasted maybe 1 second. Maybe less. It stayed with me anyway. Downstairs, the lobby bar was full of old classmates, cheap champagne, and people who remembered versions of us I wished they did not. Mason walked beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched, but not quite. He kept leaving that tiny space between us. A choice. Again and again. And somehow, that space made me more aware of him than if he had been holding my hand. The lobby bar looked like every wedding welcome party I had ever tried to avoid. Too many familiar faces. Too many button-down shirts. Too many people pretending high school had been charming instead of a 4-year group project in survival. Jenna spotted me first and came straight over with both arms open. Elliot Parker, you actually came. I let her hug me, laughing against her shoulder. You threatened me in 3 separate texts. Because you disappear when emotionally cornered. Her eyes slid to Mason beside me, and her smile softened in that dangerous way people smile when they know too much. And you brought backup. Mason held up both hands. Only if he wants backup. I hated that my chest tightened at that. Jenna noticed. Of course she did. Before she could say anything, a voice cut in from behind us. No way. I turned and felt my stomach drop for the second time that night. Travis Bell stood near the bar with a beer in one hand and the same smirk he used to wear in locker-lined hallways. Older now. Beard. Wedding tie already loosened. But still Travis. Parker and Reed. His grin widened. Man, this is a reunion. Mason went still beside me. Not tense in the obvious way. Just quiet. Like every part of him had locked into place. Travis looked between us, then laughed. Wait, are you two sharing a room again? That is hilarious. Nobody else laughed. That was the worst part. Jenna looked at her drink. Mason's jaw moved once. I could feel him looking at me, but I kept my face loose, easy, practiced. Booking mistake, I managed. Wedding weekend. Right. Travis pointed his beer at me. Careful, Parker. Last time did not go so great for you. The room did not stop. People kept talking. Ice kept clinking. Music kept playing from some speaker near the fireplace. But my body did not get the message. My skin went cold under Mason's hoodie. For 1 second I was 17 again, standing in a motel room, while everyone laughed like I was supposed to thank them for including me. Mason stepped forward half an inch. Not much. Enough that I felt it. Do not. His voice was low. Travis blinked. Relax, man. I am joking. Mason did not smile. Do not joke about that. There it was. Simple. Flat. No performance. No big scene. Just a line drawn on the floor between then and now. Travis lifted his free hand like Mason was being dramatic, but he drifted back toward the bar anyway. Jenna cleared her throat, and started talking too brightly about the ceremony schedule. I nodded at the right places, smiled when I was supposed to, held my plastic cup so tightly the rim bent under my thumb. Mason did not touch me. I almost wished he would. Then I got mad at myself for wishing that. 5 minutes later, I slipped out through the side hallway near the restrooms. I told myself I just needed air, even though there was no air in a carpeted hotel corridor that smelled like lemon cleaner and old wallpaper. I stopped beside a vending machine, pressed my palms against the cool glass, and stared at a row of pretzels like they had answers. Footsteps came behind me. I knew they were his before he spoke. "I am sorry." I closed my eyes. "You did not say it." I laughed. That hurt because it was true. I turned around. Mason stood a few feet away, hands at his sides, giving me space again. Always space. "I am not mad about tonight." My voice came out too calm. "I know. Do you?" His eyes lifted to mine, and for once he looked less careful, more scared. "I know you learned how to survive me before you ever learned how to love me." My throat went tight so fast I could not answer. Mason glanced down, then back up. "That is not me trying to sound deep. That is just what happened." A laugh almost came out of me, but it broke halfway. "You make it hard to hate you now." His mouth softened. "I am not asking you to hate me." The hallway went quiet around us. Somewhere behind the ballroom doors, people cheered at something. Mason reached into his pocket and pulled out a packet of peanut butter crackers from the vending machine. My usual road trip snack. "You have not eaten since noon." I stared at the crackers, then at him. "That is your move right now." "No move." He held them out. "Just crackers." My fingers brushed as when I took them. This time, neither of us pulled away right away. And that was the part that scared me most. Not Travis. Not the room. Not the old memory. It was Mason standing in front of me with tired eyes and shaking hands, making it impossible to pretend he had not changed. The crackers were terrible. Dry, salty, the kind of thing you only eat at gas stations or when your boyfriend remembers your habits too well and ruins your ability to stay mad. I took one bite anyway because my hands needed something to do. Mason leaned against the wall across from me. Not close, not far. Just there. "You can go back in," I told him. "Jenna probably thinks I kidnapped you." His mouth moved like he almost smiled. "Jenna has known you since middle school. She knows you kidnapped yourself." I hated that I laughed. It came out small, but real, and Mason looked at it like he wanted to keep it. That made my face warm, so I stared down at the cracker wrapper. "You should not have to babysit me in a hallway." "I am not babysitting you." "Then what are you doing?" He was quiet for a second. Too quiet. When I looked up, his expression had shifted. The carefulness was still there, but underneath it was something rawer. Trying to be where I should have been back then. My chest tightened. I should have had a smart answer. Something light. Something that could steer us away from the edge. But the hallway felt smaller than before, like the vending machine glow and the closed ballroom doors had left only the two of us in the world. Mason. His name came out softer than I meant it to. He noticed. Of course he did. His eyes dropped to my mouth for one fast second, then back up. My breath caught so hard it embarrassed me. He pushed off the wall, slow enough that I could have stopped him with one word. I did not. He stepped closer. Not touching, just close. Close enough that I could smell his cologne under the hotel soap. Close enough that my shoulder almost brushed his chest when someone passed at the far end of the hall, and I shifted back by instinct. Mason lifted one hand, then paused halfway. "Can I?" I knew what he meant. Not a kiss. Not exactly. Just touch. Just his hand near my arm. Just a small thing that somehow felt bigger than the entire room upstairs. I nodded. His fingers settled lightly around my wrist. Not gripping. Not trapping. Barely holding. His thumb rested over my pulse, and I hated that he could probably feel how fast it was. "I used to grab you without thinking," he murmured. Like I had the right. The words landed under my ribs. I stared at his hand. Stronger now than it had been at 17. Gentler too. "You were an idiot." A breath of laughter left him, shaky and quiet. "Yeah." His thumb moved once. Slow. Almost nothing. "I am sorry, Elliot." I had heard him apologize before. In parking lots. In his truck. Over coffee at my kitchen table. But this one felt different because there was no speech around it. No explanation. Just his hand on my wrist, and his eyes asking me not to lie. I looked up. He was already looking at me. The space between us got thin. Dangerous. My whole body leaned half an inch before my brain could stop it. Mason went still. His eyes searched mine, and for one impossible second, I thought he might kiss me right there beside a vending machine full of stale candy and pretzels. I wanted him to. That was the part one could not explain away. Then the ballroom door swung open. Music spilled into the hallway, loud and bright. Jenna stepped out with her phone in one hand and stopped dead. Mason released my wrist immediately, but not fast enough to make it look casual. Jenna looked from him to me, then to the crackers, then back to me. Am I interrupting something? My face burned. No, Mason said nothing. That was worse. Jenna's eyebrows lifted like she did not believe either of us, mostly because only one of us had answered. Well, she said slowly, they are doing speeches in 5, and if you hide any longer, I am sending my aunt after you. She disappeared back inside, leaving the door to swing shut behind her. The hallway went quiet again, but not the same quiet. Mason stepped back, putting the space between us like he thought I needed it. Maybe I did. Maybe I did not. I looked down at my wrist where his thumb had been. My skin still remembered. We should go back, I managed. Mason nodded, but his eyes stayed on mine 1 second too long. Yeah. Neither of us moved. We did go back eventually. Not because either of us figured out what to do with that almost moment in the hallway, but because Jenna's aunt was a real threat, and everybody knew it. The ballroom had shifted into that soft, sentimental part of the night where people stood around with half-empty glasses, pretending they were not about to cry at rehearsal speeches. Mason walked beside me, close enough that his sleeve brushed mine once. Just once. He noticed. I noticed him noticing. Neither of us said anything. That was becoming a problem. We found our table near the back, which should have been safe. It was not. Travis was there, along with 2 other guys from our high school, Eric and Nolan. I had not seen either of them in years. Eric gave me an awkward little wave, like he remembered being mean enough to feel bad, but not mean enough to apologize. Nolan just stared at Mason's hoodie on me. So this is real, huh? Nolan nodded between us, a loose grin on his face. You two are actually together? My stomach tightened. Mason's hand flexed once beside his chair. I answered before he could. Yeah. It came out steadier than I felt. Nolan whistled under his breath. Damn. Did not see that coming. Travis leaned back, beer balanced against his chest. Nobody did. Especially not after senior year. The table went quiet in a way that made my skin prickle. Mason did not sit down. He stood behind the empty chair beside me, shoulders still, eyes on Travis. I could feel the old version of him somewhere in the room like a ghost. The boy who would have laughed it off, shrugged, made some joke so nobody looked too closely at him. Instead, Mason's voice came out low. Drop it. Travis laughed once, but it sounded thinner this time. Man, you are tense tonight. Jenna's brother started a speech at the front of the room, and everyone turned forward like that solved anything. It did not. Because halfway through the speech, my phone buzzed under the table. A message from an unknown number. For a second I thought it was wedding group chat nonsense. Then I read it. Weird seeing Reed play boyfriend after what he used to say about you. My throat went dry. I stared at the words until they blurred a little. Mason leaned closer, not enough to read, but enough to know something changed. Elliot. I locked the screen too fast. Nothing. His eyes sharpened. Not angry. Worried. That was not nothing. I said it as nothing. The words came out sharper than I meant, and Mason pulled back like I had put a hand on his chest and pushed. Good. Bad. I did not know. I just needed air again, but I had already used the hallway once. I was not going to become the guy who kept running out of rooms because old classmates still knew where to press. I sat there through the rest of the speech, smiling when people laughed, clapping when everyone clapped. Mason stayed beside me, painfully quiet. Afterward, he reached for my hand under the table. I saw the movement before anyone else could. Slow, careful, asking without words. And I panicked. I moved my hand to pick up my glass. His fingers closed on empty air. The look on his face lasted maybe half a second, but it hurt more than I expected. Not offended, not embarrassed. Just like he understood why and hated that he had given me a reason to. Across the table, Travis noticed. His mouth twitched. That tiny almost smile made my pulse kick hard. Mason saw it too. Something in him changed. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes fixed on Travis. You got something to say? Travis lifted his eyebrows. I was just watching. Then stop. The words were quiet enough that only our table heard. Eric stared at his plate. Nolan looked away. Travis held Mason's gaze for 2 seconds, then scoffed and stood up. Whatever, man. When he left, the table did not relax. Neither did I. Mason turned slightly toward me, voice lower. Who texted you? I looked at him then. Really looked. At the worry he was trying not to turn into fear. At the guilt sitting right under his skin. At the boyfriend who wanted to protect me from damage he had helped create. And still, all I could think was that everyone in this room had known some version of us before we did. I do not know, I whispered. Mason's jaw tightened. What did it say? I wanted to lie. I almost did. But my phone felt heavy in my pocket, and his empty hand was still resting on the table between us. So I told him. Mason went completely still. Mason did not move for a long time. Not in a dramatic way. He just sat there with his hands still on the table, eyes lowered, like the sentence had gone straight through him and pinned him to the chair. Weird seeing Reed play boyfriend after what he used to say about you. I wished I had not told him. I wished I had lied and said it was nothing, because now his face had gone quiet in that awful way that made him look 17 and 26 at the same time. Mason. He blinked once, then looked at me. What did I used to say? My stomach turned. Do we have to do this here? His jaw tightened, but not at me. At himself. At the room. At every laughing version of him still sitting somewhere behind us. No, he pushed his chair back carefully. Not here. We left through the side door by the coat check. No one stopped us. Or maybe they noticed, and I just did not care anymore. The hallway was cooler, dimmer, with framed beach photos on the walls and muffled music bleeding through the ballroom doors. Mason walked ahead of me until we reached a small sitting area near the elevators. Then he stopped so suddenly I almost bumped into him. I said things, he breathed, staring at the carpet. I know I did. Mason. No. I need to say it before I try to make myself look better. He rubbed both hands over his face, then dropped them. His eyes were red, but he was not crying. Mason did not cry easily. That made it worse. I called you weird. I called you soft. I laughed when they said worse. My throat burned. I folded my arms, mostly to keep myself together. Yeah. He nodded like the word hit him exactly where it should. And the messed up part is, half the time I was watching you more than anyone else was. I looked up. The hallway seemed to tilt a little. What? Mason let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but there was no humor in it. I noticed everything. Your sketchbook. The way you hid behind your hair when you got embarrassed. The blue hoodie you wore every Friday because you thought nobody noticed. My mouth went dry. You remember that? His eyes met mine. Held. I remember too much. For a second, neither of us spoke. The elevator dinged somewhere nearby, and an older couple stepped out, laughing softly. Mason moved aside to give them room, but his gaze stayed on me like leaving the conversation would hurt more than staying. Once they were gone, he looked down at his hands. I did not know what to do with it back then. With you. With how much I wanted you to look at me, and how angry I got when you did. My pulse started pounding in my ears. So you made me feel small? Yes. No excuse. No dodge. Just the word. It should have made me angry. It did. But it also cracked something open, because he looked sick saying it. I thought if I made everyone laugh, nobody would notice I was scared. His voice dropped. And nobody would notice I liked you. The air left my lungs too fast. I stared at him, waiting for the joke, the safety net, the old smirk that could make everything less real. It never came. Mason stepped closer, then stopped himself, hands curling at his sides. I'm not saying that to make it romantic. It was not romantic. It was cruel. My chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. Then why say it? Because you keep thinking this is one-sided somehow. His eyes searched mine, like you were the only one trying not to feel too much. I could not answer. My throat would not let me. Mason's voice went softer. When you pulled your hand away at the table, I understood why. A pause. But I hated it. Not because you owed me anything. Because I did not want to go back to pretending I do not want to hold your hand in front of people. Something in my face must have changed, because his breath caught. He looked almost startled by his own honesty. I do not want normal, if normal means acting like you are some secret I am allowed to love only when nobody is watching. My heart kicked hard. The hallway was too quiet. Too public. Too close. Mason looked at my hand, then back at me. I am not asking right now. His mouth curved sadly. I just needed you to know I was not reaching under that table out of guilt. I swallowed. Then why? He held my gaze so long I felt it in my ribs. Because it felt real to me. And I did not want to let go. I should have said something after that. Anything. Even a bad joke would have been better than standing there in the hallway with Mason's words hanging between us like a hand I was too scared to take. Because it felt real to me, and I did not want to let go. My chest was tight. My fingers were still curled into my sleeves. I wanted to step closer. I wanted to believe him without checking every corner of the room for the old version of him. Instead, I looked toward the ballroom doors and whispered, "We should go back." Mason's face changed. Just a little. Like he had expected it, but it still landed wrong. Yeah. He nodded once. Okay. That was the thing about Mason now. He did not push. He did not argue. He just gave me the space I asked for, even when I could tell it hurt him. And somehow that made me feel worse. We walked back together, but not like before. The tiny space between us felt wider now. Deliberate. Heavy. Inside the ballroom, people were moving from speeches into music, the lights dimmer, everyone louder. Jenna caught my eye from across the room and gave me a look that asked if I was alive. I gave her a thumbs up that convinced absolutely no one. Mason headed for the bar. I told myself he was getting water, or air, or a second away from me, which was fair. Then I saw Travis near him. My stomach dropped before I even knew why. Travis said something I could not hear. Mason leaned closer, not smiling, but listening. Travis's mouth moved again, and this time I caught only pieces. "You sure about all this?" Then, "People remember, man." Mason looked down at his glass. That was all. Just one glance down. But my brain did what it always did when it was scared. It filled in the blank with the worst possible answer. Maybe Mason was tired. Maybe the hallway honesty had been too much. Maybe he had meant it when nobody was watching, but out here, with old classmates and old stories and old shame floating around the room, he was remembering how easy it used to be to stand on the other side. I stepped backward before I realized I was doing it. Jenna appeared beside me like she had teleported. "Hey." Her voice was gentle this time, not teasing. "You okay?" I looked at Mason across the room. Travis laughed at something. Mason did not. Still, my throat tightened. "I think I need a minute." Jenna followed my gaze and sighed. "Elliot, do not. I was just going to say he has looked at you like 7 times since he walked over there." I swallowed. That does not mean anything. It means he is either in love with you or worried you are about to bolt. Probably both. I almost laughed, but it got stuck. "It is complicated." Her expression softened. "I know, but complicated does not mean fake." That hit too close, so I excused myself before she could see my face fully crack. I ended up outside on the hotel patio, where the ocean air was cold enough to make my eyes water, and the music inside turned into a muffled pulse through the glass. I told myself I was not running. I was just breathing. There was a difference. Maybe. I leaned against the railing and pulled Mason's hoodie tighter around me, which was a cruel thing for my hands to do when I was trying not to think about him. The door opened behind me a minute later. I did not turn around. I already knew. Mason stopped a few feet away. "Travis told me people still talk." His voice was rough. "About me. About you. About us." I stared out at the dark parking lot. And I told him they can talk to me if they have a problem. I closed my eyes. The relief was instant, and I hated that it exposed me. Mason stepped closer, careful as always. "Did you think I was backing out?" I did not answer fast enough. That was answer enough. He exhaled slowly. "Elliot, I saw you look down." My voice sounded small, and I hated that too. When he said people remember. "You looked down like you regretted it." Silence. Then his shoes shifted against the concrete. I looked down because I was trying not to punch him at my best friend's wedding weekend. That pulled a surprised breath out of me. Almost a laugh. Almost. Mason came into my line of sight, hands tucked into his pockets like he did not trust himself to reach for me. "I do not regret you." My chest tightened. He looked straight at me, eyes tired and clear. "I regret making you believe that was possible." The patio went quiet except for the wind. I wanted to forgive the sentence immediately. I wanted to step into him and let the night become simple. But my fear was stubborn. It had lived in me longer than he had loved me. So I looked away and whispered, "I do not know how to stop waiting for you to be embarrassed by me." Mason did not flinch. He just nodded like I had handed him something heavy and he was willing to carry it. "Then do not stop tonight." His voice softened. "Just let me prove it longer." "I cannot keep doing this," I said. Mason went still. Not scared exactly. More like he had been waiting for those words and still was not ready for them. The patio door shut behind some laughing guests. Then everything went quiet again except for the wind and the low thump of music inside. Mason took one small step closer, then stopped. Doing what? I looked at him. Really looked. At the tired eyes. The hands buried in his pockets. The careful space he kept giving me like it was the only language he trusted. Acting like I am okay when I am not. His face softened, but he did not interrupt. That helped. It also made it harder. I love you, I said, and his breath caught so slightly I almost missed it. I do. That is not the part one am confused about. Mason swallowed. His hands came out of his pockets, then hung at his sides like he did not know where to put them. Then what part? The part where loving you sometimes makes me feel stupid. The words landed between us, ugly and honest. I hated them immediately. Mason looked down for half a second, but this time I knew he was not leaving. He was taking it in. Because of what I did. Because of what you did. Because of what you let people do. Because everyone in there remembers some version of us that I have spent years trying to outgrow. My voice cracked on the last word, and I looked away fast. The parking lot lights blurred a little. And then you hold my hand, or you give me your hoodie, or you look at me like that, and I want to forget it. I want to make it simple. I laughed once, sharp and quiet. But it is not simple. Mason nodded. Slow. No, it is not. I turned back to him, surprised by how badly I wanted him to argue, to defend himself, to make me mad enough that I would not have to feel everything else. But he just stood there and let the truth stay ugly. I do not want you to forgive me because I am better now, he said. That sounds like a trade. Like I earned it. His jaw flexed. I did not earn anything. Then what are you asking for? His eyes lifted to mine. A chance to keep choosing you where people can see. My chest tightened. That sounds easy until it is not. I know. Do you? I did not mean for it to come out that hard, but it did. Mason stepped closer this time. Not enough to crowd me. Just enough to stop hiding behind distance. Elliot, I spent half of tonight wanting to take your hand, and the other half terrified that if I did, you would feel trapped again. His voice roughened. Do you know how badly I hate that I have to think about that? Not because it annoys me. Because I am the reason. I stared at him. My pulse was in my throat now. He held out his hand, palm up, between us. He did not move it closer. I am not asking you to take it. The wind pushed at his shirt. His fingers shook once, barely. I am asking you to tell me when you want me to stop standing across the room pretending I do not want to. The silence after that felt huge. Bigger than the patio. Bigger than the wedding. I looked at his hand. Then at the ballroom windows, where shapes moved behind the glass. People laughing and dancing and remembering whatever versions of us they wanted. For years, I thought safety meant nobody looking. Nobody knowing. Nobody having a reason to laugh. But Mason was standing in front of me, scared and open and not asking me to shrink. I reached out. Slowly. My fingers touched his palm first, then slid into place. Mason closed his hand around mine like he had been trying not to breathe until that second. Not tight. Not claiming. Just there. Warm. Real. I am still angry, I whispered. His thumb brushed once over my knuckles. I know. And I still get scared. I know. I looked up at him. But I do not want to spend the rest of tonight acting like you are not my boyfriend. Something broke across his face. Not dramatic. Just relief, soft and stunned. Okay. I squeezed his hand. And if Travis says one more thing, Jenna's aunt can handle it. Mason laughed under his breath, the sound shaky and bright. For the first time all night, the space between us did not feel like damage control. It felt like a choice we were finally making out loud. We walked back inside holding hands. Not hidden under the table. Not dropped when the ballroom got bright. Not turned into a joke before anyone else could. Just my hand in Mason's, his thumb resting lightly against mine like he was still checking every few seconds to make sure I had not changed my mind. A few people noticed right away. Jenna saw first. Her whole face softened, but she did not make a scene. She just lifted her glass at me from across the room, like she was saying, "There you are." I almost smiled. Then Travis looked over from near the bar. His eyes dropped to our hands. For 1 second, my body prepared for impact out of habit. The old tightening. The old heat in my face. The old instinct to let go before anyone could make it hurt. Mason felt it. I knew he did, because his fingers shifted around mine. Not tighter, just steadier. You okay? He murmured, barely moving his mouth. I looked at Travis, then at Mason, then at our hands. Not completely. His eyes stayed on me. Okay. That was all. No fixing. No panic. Just okay. We went back to the table. Eric looked awkwardly at his napkin. Nolan pretended to check his phone. Travis opened his mouth like he had something ready. But before he could use it, Jenna's aunt appeared behind him with a slice of cake and the most terrifying smile I had ever seen. "Sweetheart, unless you are about to say something kind, go help move chairs." Travis blinked. Mason coughed once, trying not to laugh. I almost lost it right there. Maybe that was when the night finally loosened. Not healed, not erased, just loosened. We sat side by side through the rest of the party. Mason's hand stayed on my knee for a while, warm and still, and later mine stayed over his on the table where people could see. Nobody exploded. Nobody pointed. Nobody's opinion became bigger than the simple fact of us sitting there, tired and nervous and real. At one point, Jenna dragged everyone into a slow dance. I started to refuse because dancing at weddings should be illegal, especially in front of people who knew your high school haircut. Mason leaned close, voice low. "We can sit this one out." I looked at him. Same careful offer. Same open door. Same choice. So I stood up. His eyebrows lifted. "Seriously? Do not make me regret it." He smiled then. Not the careful one. A real one. The kind that made him look younger and softer and nothing like the boy I used to fear. We did not dance well. Mostly we swayed near the edge of the floor while other couples did a much better job pretending they had rhythm. Mason kept one hand at my back, light enough that I could move away any time. I did not. Halfway through the song, he bent closer. For what it is worth, 17-year-old me would be losing his mind right now. I glanced up. Good. His laugh brushed against my temple. Yeah, good. Later, when we finally went upstairs, the room felt different before we even opened the door. Same keycard. Same bad hallway carpet. Same queen bed waiting under the yellow lamp. But I did not freeze this time. Mason set his jacket on the chair and looked at the floor out of habit. I can still sleep down there. I rolled my eyes, but my throat went tight. "Mason." He looked up. I pulled back the blanket on one side of the bed. Not a grand gesture. Not a movie moment. Just me making space. His face went quiet in that way I was starting to understand. Like he was being handed something fragile and did not trust himself to breathe near it. We lay down with a careful distance between us at first. A few inches. A whole history. Then I reached across the sheets and found his hand. He turned his palm up immediately. Like he had been waiting, but not expecting. "I am not fixed," I whispered into the dark. "I know." His thumb moved slowly over mine. "Me neither." I stared at the ceiling, listening to the air conditioner click on, to distant laughter from the parking lot below, to Mason breathing beside me. "I do not want to forget what happened. I do not want you to." I turned my head. He was already looking at me. Of course he was. "I just want new memories," I said. His eyes softened. "Then we will make them." It was such a simple answer. No speech. This time, I fell asleep with his hand in mine, not because everything stopped hurting, but because when morning came, I knew he would still be there, and I would still be choosing to stay.